Welcome everybody to the 8th episode of the hashtag Invest This podcast, where we're bringing on people in the elite side of real estate and real estate investment. Today, I'm blessed to have Dave Brown with us today. He is a coach, mentor. He's a real estate investor himself. He has also a podcast, the American Snippets podcast, and I'm happy to have him on the show today. Dave, welcome.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. You want to give the listeners a little bit more about your background and kind of what you're focused on now?
Sure. As far as real estate, I've been in the real estate game for, I think this is going on my 16th year. So I got started as a real estate agent. Had a full-time, I've always been in this business full-time, whether I was investing or an agent, but I was full-time agent for years, for 13-year career. Dabbled with mostly on the listing side. Did a lot of short sales during the housing collapse. Did over 50 short sales during a 2-year period. Picked up a major account as an REO broker with HSBC. So I did that for 2 years. And I got started in real estate coming from the restaurant business. So late nights and weekends, and my wife at the time was about 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And I realized that I needed to make a change. I wanted to be tucking my little girl in bed at night instead of flipping bottles. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And my buddy of mine, Tom, he got his real estate license working for a company called Exit Realty. And he's like, Dave, you should do this. And I always had an interest in real estate, owned a 2-family in the town that I went to college in, and always thought of real estate as a vehicle, to invest with. Never was really interested in getting my license, but I thought at the time, I didn't know any better. I thought at the time that that's what I needed to do, right? For me to be able to invest in real estate, I had to get my license. It must be how it works. So lo and behold, that's exactly what I did. I got my license and went down the career path of being an agent for 13 years and completely got sidetracked from what I originally got into real estate for to begin with. Had some ups and downs through that period. I got beat
When
up.
was that? What time period was that?
So that was right after 9/11. I got my license in 2001. Yeah. And then, in New York, right after 9/11 hit, the housing market went through the roof, especially New York City is always going through the roof, but upstate 2 hours, Hudson Valley area, Westchester County, Dutchess County, the market just went on fire. People from the city were buying homes upstate, second homes. It was just crazy, just like, a lot of the rest of the country was. So, everyone was jumping in, getting their license because they thought, they could list a house and sell it over the weekend because of multiple offers and everything else. So I got caught up in all that. And lo and behold, the housing market collapse came, and I basically lost everything. Lost my house upstate, lost my primary residence, ended up going through a divorce, had a second side hustle job in the equipment financing industry that was 6 figures. So who finances equipment? Home builders, right? Yep. So as the housing market collapsed, so did that industry. And I was in a pretty dark place. But
so
the adage, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you keep moving forward. So then
I think that's a good little, pause section for it, because
Sure.
Everybody gets in a dark place. Everybody. For me, before I got into the real estate space on a full-time hardcore level, like I have been for the last few years, I was kind of in a dark place myself. And so real estate was a way that I can get out of that dark place. It gave me a place to focus on something other than what was causing me to be in a dark place. And so, tell us, how did you get out of that? I mean, what, I guess, how can you explain how you kind of got out of the dark place?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's tough to explain. It's I'm the kind of the person that um I can take a lot of punches. Like
Yeah,
I don't stress out over things that most people I think stress over. Like things tend to bounce off me without me like focusing on that too much and kind of having it take me down a bad path or down the rabbit hole. I can quickly snap out of things. That doesn't mean it things don't go without uh, huge hurdles or challenges. It's still like the process was still extremely difficult. But I don't know. I've always had this like never quit attitude. Like doesn't matter what happens. I'm just gonna. I know what I want. I know what my main, you know, foreseeable goal is, and I'm just gonna stick with it no matter how tough it gets.
absolutely.
So I think having that mindset helped. Um, Part of that mindset I naturally kind of ingrained in me because of my not so much upbringing, but the fact that I lost my father at a very young age. I was 3 years old, so I never had a father figure in my life. Um, so when I had my daughter and then my son soon after, 2 years later, uh, I it's my why, right? It's everyone needs to have their why, like their purpose, like why they're doing what they're doing. And for me,
Yep.
being an entrepreneur and real estate investor, that ended up becoming my why, right? Because I didn't have that father figure, and now that I had children, I wanted to make sure that I could give them the father that I always wanted and never had.
That's huge. Yeah.
And so the only way for me to do that is for me to own my time, right? And the only way for me to own my time is for me to call the shots.
Yep.
So I had to be an entrepreneur. I never had a 9 to 5 job. Never. I mean, I was either flipping bottles, making commission, or collecting commissions as a real estate agent or internet marketing or what have you.
Paving your own path.
Yeah. And that carried me through is that, that why is like, I can't give up because if I give up, that means I have to get a 9 to 5 job and I'm not going to be able to give my kids the time that I want to give them.
Yeah, and have somebody else control your time for you. I mean, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
That attitude is huge. Well, just that attitude is huge. You can never lose if you never quit, right? I mean, the second that you throw in the towel, you lose. But if you never quit, then it doesn't matter how many times you get punched or how many times you get knocked down. As long as you keep getting back up, you're going to keep moving forward.
So, those two, my kids are, still to this day, I mean, a huge part of
how old are they?
What I do. Now they're 12 and 10. My daughter's the oldest. She's 12. My son's 10. I'm never going to miss a dance recital or an opportunity to chaperone on a Wednesday at 2:00 or, at noon. Like I take advantage of all of those things, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I had a regular job. I just wouldn't.
Yep.
Sometimes I drive them to school at 9:30 in the morning. I pick them up, do the chaperoning. It's just, it's great. And then I had some good mentors along the way who helped pull me out of the funk that I was in. So the housing market came, financial struggles came, soon after divorce came, and then I had the opportunity to spend 2 days with my mentor, someone you highly respect as well, Clothier.
Absolutely, yes.
And that was a big moment for me in terms of kind of him helping me put things in perspective and helping me get my life turned around again. He has an incredible story of his own, one that can be definitely eye-opening and inspiring to someone else who's gone through some heartache and some tough times, helping you realize what's possible. And so that's kind of was the final straw, I guess, that kind of snapped me out of the funk that I was in and kind of helped me get back into the focus as far as what I really wanted to do in terms of real estate. Now is be more of an investor, a full-time investor. So it was a year later, I just I gave up my license and went full-time into my current business.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I would say For me, mentors has been something that I continue to have. It's been a very impactful thing in my life. It sounds like it has been for you as well. Without mentors and people that have been there and done that ahead of you, that can kind of tell you how to cut some corners or maybe not make some mistakes. I mean, that can shave a ton of time off. And, in your circumstance, helped you get through a dark time and kind of see the light again. I mean, all right.
Definitely.
So, I mean, that's super inspiring. So, now that we're here, it's 2018. You're running your business, you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're running your American Snippets podcast. What's next? What else? Where do you see yourself in another 5 years?
So, right now I have a very lean and mean machine. So, my business is mostly focused and generates leads and deals from the internet, from organically from the search engine. So, with like SEO is my main lead generation strategy. That in and of itself also gives me a tremendous amount of leverage in terms of the flexibility of time.
Yeah.
Not only that, it gives me a very low fixed overhead. It gives me freedom of location. I work out of my home office. So what's next is to continue to build what I've built over the last 4 years, expanding it into more of the tri-state area, going down into the boroughs, Long Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, where I have some partners now that I can do joint venture deals with. And 5 years from now, I would like to be at a point where the business is generating X amount of leads and X amount of deals a month, that a major player sees the value in that and would either want to buy what I built or pay me monthly to access and for all the leads.
So a little bit of a passive cash flow at that point, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my main focus right now really is to build out, our podcast and our website, American Snippets, getting into speaking and writing, more coaching on a personal lifestyle type level, showing people how they can go after their own American dream. Contrary to what people say, it's, the American dream is not dead. I believe it's alive and well, and it's probably stronger than ever before as far as the opportunity to create something for yourself in today's.
Yeah. We're both living it, man, for sure.
Yeah. So that's where I see things going in the next 5 years, and me kind of withdrawing a little bit from the day-to-day real estate side of things, focusing more on bigger deals, multiple doors in terms of building cash flow and rentals, and having a either selling the company or having a passive line where I'm leasing out, the leads, maybe by area or the whole thing. We'll see what happens, but
either way, that way. Now, on your website, I see that you have kind of a, learn more on online marketing stuff where you might be able to make some side cash. So the listeners out there that are in real estate that maybe want to make a couple extra dollars on the side, is that a pretty easy, maybe not easy is the word, but is that a pretty lucrative thing to put something side, on the side together?
yeah, well, look, there's a lot of different ways that people can make money on their own in today's economy. One you and I are very familiar with is, real estate. Right? It's the bottom line, the foundation of almost every successful entrepreneur, millionaire, right? There's real estate in there, always in the mix somewhere.
Always.
And there's a huge opportunity. I mean, we wouldn't be seeing these shows on TV all the time with people, flipping houses and the commercials and the wholesaling. I mean, it's all doable. You have two people on this podcast who do it full time. So it's a great way to do it as a full-time business or as a side hustle. The other thing that I think a lot of people can get into, since we're living in such an information age that people pay for information and skills, and a huge part of that market is the internet, from info products to e-commerce stuff, t-shirt companies. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunity out there. So just like anything else, I would follow your heart and what you think your best skill sets are. Follow, kind of go with what resonates the most with you. But like with anything, it's going to take a lot of hard work. This stuff is simple, but it's not easy. It takes time, persistence, passion, and most importantly, like a never quit attitude. Because everyone wants crap to happen fast these days. It's like instant, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Gratification. Like if it didn't happen yesterday, then it's not working. So you gotta put the time in, man, and you gotta pay your dues. And that's why one of my favorite books is The Compound Effect, in terms of you do something over and over and over again, something that's positive, something it'll ultimately lead to a bigger result, a positive result. So whatever it is that you get into, just make sure you're doing it with all your heart and with consistency, and be patient with the process. And in the end, you'll reap the rewards.
There's a ton of truth in that. The Compound Effect, I've read that book, and there's a lot of truth in that book. I think that you can stack multiple things, because it's not always just about business, right? I mean, your personal life and your health also have to have things that you're doing on a constant basis. I mean, if you go to the gym one time ever, your health is probably going to suffer a little bit. Or if you eat bad food all the time, or you only eat good food sometimes, you're not going to reap those benefits. But if you focus on doing those things a little bit every single day, it definitely has a compound effect. I know it has for me.
It's like that guy. Who is that guy that what did he eat McDonald's like every day for 30 days?
Yeah. There's that documentary about that, right?
Yeah. He blew up, and he was like so unhealthy. Like that's the compound effect, But if he ate a salad and worked out every day, or, drank green juice, whatever it is, like right, it would have been just the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. That's there's just so much truth in that, and you're right as far as everything needing to be instantaneous nowadays.
And the same thing goes with people looking to strike it out on their own as an entrepreneur, right? The same thing applies. They want the result like now, and I get that, right? Because people want hope, right? And there's an instant need that they have, and usually it's resource, it's money.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer the time takes to get to that first deal or that first commission online, a lot of people just don't have the time to wait that long. So they're not willing to commit, I think is the word.
That is the word.
Through the process to get to that win. And I see it all the time as a coach. It's Paretos Principle. It's the 90-10 rule, the 80-20 rule. Anyone who goes out there and wants to be a real estate investor, anyone who says they want to go out there and be an online marketer, anyone who wants to open up a restaurant in New York City, right? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 are going to fail or give up. It's just fact of life. And they do that. Usually they do it because they're just not willing to commit. They're not willing to do what it takes to succeed. They're more worried about failing than winning.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. And it goes back to your never quit attitude, right? If you never quit, you can never lose. Doesn't matter if, you start a business, and all the listeners out there that are maybe listening that aren't either, don't have a business started yet or just the very beginnings of it. If you start a business and something doesn't go your way, you just make a course correction. You don't quit. You just change the direction of where it's going. And, if that doesn't work, you change it again until you keep changing it until you do find success. Because both you and I are prime examples that this does work, at least in the real estate space. Obviously, this is a real estate podcast. So I assume that most of the listeners out there are in the real estate game at some level. And so that's something that you have to be mindful about. Yeah, just don't quit.
If you want to be a statistic, right, be the right statistic. Like don't focus on why 80 or 90% of the people fail, right? Why don't you focus on who's succeeding at a high level and why, and then do what they do, right? Success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with successful people, people who are doing better than you are, people who are smarter than you are, people who are more successful. Why do you do those things? Because their success ultimately is going to rub off on you, and you're
Yep.
going to see some of the same success. I mean, it's really not complicated.
No. No, it's not. Well, that's going to kind of, I guess, lead us back into. Let me ask you a little lightning round. Let's go with the lightning round. I ask you some questions about. You've kind of answered them already, but let's go into that. You ready?
Sure.
What is your hashtag invest this tip to keep our listeners moving forward? You already said a couple, but what's one that stands out?
I would say the biggest thing is to find out what you're really truly discover what your why is. So, and that's going to require a lot of the listeners to dig deep, because the why should absolutely move you. It should probably make you cry and get you to a spot that you don't really like to be, or maybe think of things that you don't typically like to think about. So when I think of my why, I think of my dad. Like being a young age, he committed suicide. Um, Basically, started his car up in the garage and went in and fell asleep, and the fumes came back and suffocated him.
Wow, that's
Um,
terrible.
so here I am, 3 years old, you know, don't have a dad, but now I got these two kids in my life. It's like brings me to tears when I think about it, right? But at the same time, so that why is an anchor that keeps me moving forward when I don't feel like doing what I need to be doing, right? It's that determination. But it's also very selfish, right? Because it's all about me and my kids. So I think the second part of that is to not only know your why and discover what it is, but tie that to something that's bigger than yourself. So maybe it's your local church, maybe it's feeding the homeless, maybe it's helping your veterans, maybe it's charity, figuring out some way to give it back and pay it forward, and using those two things each day to propel you in the direction that you want to go without going backwards.
Yeah, I mean, for you, it's your kids. Like that's much larger than yourself. So that's awesome. I think that's a really good
Yeah,
tip.
and the bigger impact piece for us is the podcast that we're doing. Uh, that's kind of our way of giving back. Giving other people the voice and support when sometimes they don't have it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel that as well. It's obviously the reason why we're sitting here talking. I want to give back to the listeners out there, just like I've been
Yeah,
impacted.
right.
So, what's your? Do you have a favorite book? I mean, you mentioned the compound effect, but
That's
something that.
one of my favorites for sure. Um, I would have to say The Alchemist
Okay.
by Paulo Coelho is probably one of my favorite books. It was a book I read at just coming out of kind of a downturn that we spoke about earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's an amazing book, and what I love most about the book is he talks about omens, and usually, well, maybe because it's the movie The Omen, I don't know, but usually people think omens are a bad thing, when in reality they're just the opposite, right? They're little signs. You ever get like that feeling like, man, I was supposed to meet that person, or I'm in this room for a reason, and little signs pop up to kind of confirm that, or maybe you see those signs later down the road. Um,
And then you snap
like,
out of here like, wait a minute, there was a reason.
yeah, like everything has a reason, and so there's all these omens throughout The Alchemist. It's a great story, and it all comes first full circle in the end. And yeah, it's a great book.
I've actually never read that book. I've heard about it, but I'm gonna put it on my list because I've heard good things. So, and I mean, what is the impact of that book for you?
Just that everything's connected. In terms, we're just at the Find and Flip Summit, and Kent mentioned about make this a dot, right? So everything in life is a dot, and you want to connect the dots moving forward. And so that was the impact of that book, is just that everything's connected, and you can have everything you want just by keeping your head up and your eyes forward, and paying attention to details in terms of the people that you meet, the resources that you have, the people that you surround yourself with, they're all there for you to help you move forward if you're willing to tap into them, right? If you don't get complacent about what you have.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I love that. I mean, that's super good. Now you'd mentioned earlier about Kent Clothier, and he made a big impact in your life. Would you say that he's been the one that has given you the best advice, or what is the best advice you've ever been given, and who gave that to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's given me a lot of advice. One of the biggest things in terms of a shift in my mindset came when I was still a realtor, and he came to a local RIA here in New York with his brother, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I think at the time, I was just a customer of his. I owned a license of a marketing product that he had. And he sat us down, my partner at the time, Randy, and I, and he goes, you know what your problem is? Your biggest problem, the two of you? And I was like, no. He's like, you think like realtors. Meaning like, we had blinders on, right? We're trained one way, right? And we're missing the bigger picture. And that was a big shift for me in terms of transitioning from being a full-time agent to being a full-time investor. But I would say the best advice is something, and this is kind of, it's been around. He didn't coin it, but the way he delivered it, I understood it in terms of, Patrick Precourt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much advice. I think I was sitting in a room when I heard this, but the be, do, have. Right. So I think it's super powerful because everyone wants to have stuff. Like, I want to have more money. I want to have this fancy car. I want to have this vacation spot. I want to have this second home in Vail so I can go skiing, whatever it is, right? Have, I want. Everyone wants. But no one's willing to do the things that are necessary to have what it is that you want to have, right? And so Pat is like, well, you have to just be first, right? So decide who you want to be. Just choose. I want to be this person. I want to be a real estate investor. I want to be an actor. I want to be a chef, right? Believe in yourself that you can be that, and then be it. And as soon as you make that decision that you're going to be that person, start acting like what that person would act like. Start doing the things that you need to do to be that person, to make that come to fruition. Start doing the things that you need to do so you can have the things that you want to have. And I just think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, that's insanely powerful. I mean, when you said be, do, have, instantly Pat Precourt's voice or just him came in my head because that's him, right? I mean, he says that all the time. And every time you get in a room with Pat, I mean, you always learn something, right? And the guy is a great guy. Now, you'd mentioned the podcast, but how do you like to give back?
That's it. I mean, one, I like to give back my time, so I enjoy coaching and helping other people kind of become entrepreneurs. I coach in the real estate investing space, teaching new people how to get started in wholesaling and real estate investing. I coach my son's basketball team. I've been doing it for the last 3 years. That's super rewarding. And then giving back in terms of our American Snippets podcast and doing workshops and charity stuff, supporting our veterans is a big part of that. Awesome.
For all the listeners out there that might want to get into some of your coaching, somebody that's trying to get into it or whatever it is, where can they reach you?
Best place is just go to americansnippets.com. Go to the contact form. We also have it's not up yet, but we're putting together a coaching page there. You can also find me on Facebook. Reach out to me there. I guess that would be it.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to include that in the show notes. So all the listeners out there, you'll be able to find that in the show notes. Dave, we're just getting up on our time here. And so I want to thank you, for sharing kind of your background. Your kids inspire you. You've taken a path from flipping bottles to being a realtor to now full-time investor and coach and mentor, and you know, putting together that you have the never quit attitude. And that's how you've been able to get to where you're at now.
Yeah.
I mean, the compound effect, right? Doing the things that you need to do every single day will eventually get you to where you want to go. And, you know, at the end of the day, you got to be, do, and have, right?
That's it.
So,
yeah, and like your tip, like the tip of the day, that was more probably like more of a mindset thing. I would say in terms of just business and real estate, because it's, you know, this is a investing podcast. Yeah, a tip that I would leave people with is you're not an investor, you're a marketer, right? So if you want to succeed in this business, become a student of marketing.
yeah, that's so true. I mean, we are not real estate investors. We are marketing gurus. That's what it turns out to be. So,
You said guru.
you're right. I said that. You know, I mean, that's what it turns out to be, right? I mean, you just become a master in marketing. I mean, you have to, because if you don't know how to get the phone to ring, you don't know how to find leads, you don't know how to find the people. Doesn't matter whether you're buying and selling real estate or buying and selling, you know, baseball cards, I guess, anything. It doesn't matter if you don't know where to find it, you're never going to be able to sell it.
Yeah. And that would be probably the second point is, you know, get good at sales too, right? I mean, learn to sell.
Yeah. It's also important part. So anyways, sounds good, man. I appreciate you being here, and we'll I guess talk with you soon.
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye.